had an epiphany while watching the last week on Sheldon. The challenge spoiled itself, where I forgot that we're sort of on the cliffhanger of like Cara Maria and Marie versus Cam and Kayleigh, like who was gonna eat all the gross food, and then I realized that all the previews for this episode had Cara, Maria, and Marie in the thick of things, and so like as they were showing the last week on, I was like, oh, I know who lost this challenge.
That's a valid point. That's a very valid point.
I guess we should introduce ourselves.
Sure.
We're very tired this morning. I'm gonna have to struggle to keep my energy up, but I'll try to do big reads. I'm John Chidley Hill.
And I am Sheldon Alexander.
And this is You Killed It, the podcast about the challenge. Talking about Final Reckoning. I am very tired because I worked until 3 a.m. and then woke up to watch the challenge. And you were a good friend and podcast partner and agreed to do likewise.
Yes, I mean, I will say this much about the challenge. You know, sometimes in the moment as you're like trying to wake up to be like, okay, let's do this, or trying to fit it into the schedule after work or all this stuff, you know what I mean? At certain points you're like, ah. And then the episode starts. You know what I mean? The episode starts, and especially something like last night where it's just super spicy. Instantly I'm like, all right, I'm in. This is why I love this show. This is why this show is hilarious. I know that I've been on the train of too much house drama, not enough challenges. But yes. I feel like this episode was a solid mix. I know there was a lot of spiciness, a lot of house drama going on, but they gave me enough challenge that it actually worked too. And I'm going to stop myself because I was going to say something that was a big theme for me later on. But I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that. That's called a tease in the biz.
Well, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
As I said, obviously, Kayleigh and Cam lose. Yes. There's a hilarious moment when they're like talking to Hunter and Ashley, who won that purge challenge. Mm-hmm. And she's talking shit to the camera, and Hunter just looks so annoyed, and it really made me laugh. Like he's just like, it's like having to dog sit a yappy dog, and you're just like, ugh. Like this is my life.
Yeah.
And Kayleigh and Cam go straight into the redemption house, mm-hmm. and immediately they both Kayleigh and Cam and Polly and Natalie talk about the fact that Kayleigh and Natalie hate each other, cannot stand each other, and as soon as Kayleigh and Cam get into the house, Natalie like sees who it is and does the classic, like you could just see in her body language the I'm going to avoid you body language, you know what I mean? And she goes right upstairs and into her bed to just sort of like wall up. And mm-hmm. I think Polly made in Confessional a really good point that Natalie doesn't help herself with her reputation of being aloof. Like this is, if you're trying to mend your reputation of being like too cool for school, this is not the way to go about it.
But I totally agree with Polly, and I will say it is probably the first time that I typed out the words I agree with Polly.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's right, you know?
He is right.
You have this issue, you're going to have to stay in the same house for who knows how long. It's just going to be super awkward unless you guys discuss the elephant in the room. And so he was putting it out there that, you know, it's not right or it's not cool that Natalie's just going to go hide as soon as Cam and Kayleigh come into the house. You might as well address it at some point.
Yeah. And you know what? Just for the sake of the clarity of this podcast, let's just talk about all the Redemption House shit right now. And I use the phrase Redemption House shit, I think, advisedly.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, you know, you and I went over this a year ago when Final Reckoning began. Mm-hmm. And talked about the fact that the problem here is that Kayleigh's a bitch. Mm-hmm. And, like, I'm sure Kayleigh has some other redeeming qualities, but she has to get the fuck over the fact that Natalie watched her stuff get thrown over a balcony. Like, Natalie did not throw the stuff over the balcony. Natalie, while drunk, laughed or smiled for like a fleeting moment on camera while other people threw her stuff over the balcony. Like, yeah, it sucked, but it's also just stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird because, to be honest, and you're right about the Redemption House whole angle, like, every time it kept popping up, I kind of knew where it was going, or at least I thought I knew where it was going, to where we're going to get this contrived conversation of them trying to sort it out. Now, mind you, once it actually went down, it didn't play out as I thought it would. But with that said, I was still kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't really care about this. You know what I mean? Like, as it led up to the actual, like, climax of their argument. Before that part, though, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm over this. But a couple of things I will say. Shout out to Pauly and Cam, because I think they weren't instigating, right? I think they were actually trying to get them to talk through their issues. And they were sitting around and watching it all go down, but in a way to kind of help and peacemake it and to, you know, be there for support for their partners, right? Because especially in Natalie's case, you could tell she needs that backup. And Pauly did a good job, I think, in giving her the backup that she needed to deal with something that clearly was an issue for her.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And also, when things got heated, they both immediately jumped in and separated them.
Yeah.
Like, it really was, I think, an honest attempt by both Cam and Pauly to settle this. And, like, it makes sense. Beyond gameplay, like, would you want to live in a house, just the four of you, where two of you hate each other? Like, just for your own peace of mind on a day-to-day, like, if you can't even ask for someone to pass the salt, like,
it would be
there's an issue,
super
right?
annoying. It'd be super annoying because there'd just be so much built-up tension and awkwardness the entire time. It's not something that I would be interested in dealing with, for sure.
No.
But the other part to this is there is a game going on that's worth $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And so I was kind of thrown off at the beginning because Pauly like ran up to them and like gave them huge hugs and stuff. But then you realize, oh, there's another angle to this whole thing going on as well. And, you know, I think Cam alluded to it after they had the full-on argument where she was like, oh, I don't think they're going to pick us if that double-cross thing comes up again. I don't think that we're going to get picked, you know? So
nope.
There are multiple layers to it, but let's get to the actual crux of what went down. I guess, you know, the easy way to look at it is Team Natalie versus Team Kayleigh, I guess. But at the same time, I don't know who would be on Team Kayleigh because the way that it went down was weird, right? Like, they seem to be on the path of being over it or being, like, okay with each other. And then Kayleigh dropped the however.
Yeah.
Right? And then it took a turn. Because at the end of the day, if you're comparing what either of them did, and in this instance, it's Natalie's mad because Kayleigh outed her on social media. Kayleigh's mad at Natalie because, you know, she felt embarrassed and she felt bullied on the show when all the girls ganged up on her and threw her stuff over the balcony. When you're comparing those two things, obviously what Kayleigh did is 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird that Kayleigh was the one that kind of kept this thing going, if that made sense, or gave it the hard turn into the awkward conversation that it ended up being.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. And I respected Natalie for, like, apologizing for her role in things. Mm-hmm. Because all you can do is clean up your side of the street, right?
For sure.
And Natalie did that. Natalie, I agree with you, is the more wronged party. Like, to put it in another, like, context, Kayleigh having her stuff thrown over the balcony, that's a bad night. Natalie being outed for her sexual orientation, that's a bad week, month, year. Like, that's going to affect her relationships for a long time. Like, she said at one point, not on this episode, but previously, that she had not yet come out to her parents. And, like, I don't know what her family situation is like, but, like, it is outrageous that Kayleigh took that conversation from Natalie. You know what I mean? Like, that's... Yeah. Regardless of how her parents feel about her sexual orientation, like, that's a conversation that Natalie should get to have with her parents. Whether it's negative or positive, whether they accept her for who she is, or if they have a negative reaction, that should be for her and her parents to go through face-to-face, not one-on-one, but, you know, like in an intimate, personal setting. So for Kayleigh to take that from her, it's such an incredible overreaction. And I think part of the problem here is that Kayleigh, on some level, knows that she really overstepped her bounds, and she's embarrassed by that. Like, when someone doesn't apologize, I think that's typically the issue, is that they know they went too far, and that they don't want to walk it back because they're embarrassed.
Yeah, I think there's multiple things at play here, and I think one of them to remember here, and obviously I'm not defending Kayleigh because what she did was horrible, and, like, there's no defending that at all. What I think, though, was happening with her in her mind, right? And you have to remember the fact that Kayleigh is used to being on these reality shows that are drama-filled, and, you know, you're going back and forth with someone, and it's, you know, you're dissing each other back and forth. Like, that's kind of the context of the shows that she's been on. And obviously, this is, like, her second season on being on The Challenge, right? Mm-hmm. Natalie is still kind of, you know, treading water in how these kind of shows work. Do you know what I mean in that sense? And so I think in Kayleigh's mind, she was coming into this conversation, and I think midway through, what set her off was she kind of knew that how this was going to be played out in terms of Natalie was going to play the victim and play it up, even though she is, and I'm not taking that away, but I'm saying I think Kayleigh in her mind kind of thought, oh no, I see where this is going, and I'm going to make sure that I get all my points out, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not just going to sit here while I think she used a crocodile tears term. I think that's what she said about Natalie. You know, like Natalie's going to start crying, and then I'm supposed to give her a hug and blah, blah, blah. And she was kind of like, no. That's not the role I'm playing here. And I think that's what happened. Again, not justifying. I'm just trying to think about where she could be coming from, right?
Yeah.
The other funny part.
You're saying that Kayleigh went on offense so she didn't have to play defense.
Exactly. Okay.
Continue.
The other thing I thought that was kind of interesting was just reading different reactions to it from the challenge competitors online. And so Natalie said last night on Twitter, she said, I want to give a special thank you to Pauly, Davon, and Angela for teaching me how to clap back or whatever. Still a work in progress, but I'm taking notes every day. I thought it was kind of funny, you know, and kind of like made it a little more lighthearted, because obviously at the core of this is a very super, super serious situation, right? So you don't want to like make light of it. But at the end of the day too, you know, the flip side is they're on a show, right? And there's a lot of stuff going on here. Davon also commented and said, Natalie, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. For so long, I've watched people say whatever they want to and about you because you made it easy for them to do it by not speaking up. Mm-hmm. You should be proud.
Yeah,
and then
you
she also
teach
says,
people
this
how,
is not just
how
about
to treat
Kayleigh.
you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right? She also says, this isn't about Kayleigh. So I think it's just a general thing, right? Because even if you remember last season, for, you know, like people were going at Natalie kind of just like, you know, faded off into the background, you know, when the whole Johnny Bananas thing was going on. And then the other girls really took up her defense, really. And that's how the Kayleigh thing happened last season. So to see her just kind of go at it herself, it was interesting.
It was a good step in the right direction for Natalie's own personal development. Because, yeah, as I said, you teach people how to treat you.
Exactly.
And you have to, like, set boundaries. One thing, you kind of alluded to it with Natalie's tweet, and that was I had a listener, Narnia. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I did not, but Narnia reached out to me on Instagram message, and she wrote to say that reads, you know how Jose said, like, all right, read, and
yes. Yeah.
that's not quite a read, and you'd read out the definition from Urban Dictionary, which
Yes.
also didn't, was literally correct, but kind of missed that a true read is more like a roast, but with some heart. Like, they're supposed to be, like, it's a little more fun and has some humor to it, and also can be self-deprecating, right?
Gotcha.
So very much like a closer analogy would be a roast, with like, but also trying to push someone in the right direction. There's like more cleverness to it. What happened last week on the challenge with like Jose and like Natalie, that was just calling people out. And apparently it's a big thing that they do on RuPaul's Drag Race, which is a reality TV show I've been told many times by my good friend Lily Pontieri that I should be watching. So, you know, we like to broaden our reality TV horizons. So at some point, I'm going to have to like binge that on Netflix. Once I get done binge watching Suits, I will move on to RuPaul's Drag Race. But yeah, just shout out to Narnia for the more accurate definition of read. And since you sort of alluded to it, I was going to take that opportunity. I can cross that off my list of listener comments to bring up.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I guess that wraps up the Redemption House side of things.
Yes,
and again, like, not much going on there. Obviously, there was a very serious conversation, but at the end of the day, the juice of this episode, I guess, really took place in the main house. And it was funny because although we're talking about it out of order in terms of how things played out in the episode, I was still writing stuff down about what was happening in the main house while that second Redemption House scene was going on.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's how much stuff was going on in the main house of the challenge.
Well,
right?
It's also the Kayleigh-Natalie fight we've seen so many times before. And, like, you and I have talked about this. But we're both super over the Redemption House. So I know what you mean. It's easy to square it away and focus on the main house drama, which is fresher and newer.
For sure. And I mean, no, go on.
I was going to say, it kicks off in your favorite place, Sheldon. It starts off in the club. And I know you live for these club scenes. But
I do.
I have to point something out. How come the clubs that they take these poor people to always look so shitty? Like, it looks like a Royal Canadian Legion Hall. Like, it legit looks like they flew them out to Sudbury, Ontario for, like, a night in the nickel capital of the world. Shout out to Sudbury.
So, I think that there's a couple of things at play, right? Like, one, who knows where, like, literally they're at the most, like, remote locations in the world, right? So,
yeah.
I don't know what the nightlife is really like, you know. I don't know how poppin' the nightlife is. But the other part is how, if you're going to a club, there's different ways you can go about it, right? Like, you could have a deal with the club, but that doesn't mean you have a deal with being able to shoot everyone else. So that means you're either putting the cast in a corner, meaning you're only shooting them and there's no other just random club goers that are going to be in the shot. So that makes it look a little more chill too, and a little more calm and not as fun, right? Like, you're not getting the full-on dance floor scenes that you might want to see, right? So that might be a thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't even know if that much was really going down in the actual club scene. I think it was just there to set up, okay, everyone's been drinking. Now let's see what happens when they go back to the house, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that to me seemed to be the main part of it. I mean, we got Joss and Hunter discussing the possibility of some power moves, and, you know, there's talk of, do people try to throw in Bananas and Tony? Like, there's that kind of stuff. And then there was a conversation of Cara and Ashley, obviously, right? And Kara's getting mad at Ashley.
Yes.
So Ashley says that Cara Maria told her that she didn't really care about Kyle. But now Cara is saying that she really does like him.
Mm-hmm.
And so Ashley could have said something to her. Ashley should have known. And this is where the little issue starts, because then Ashley is, I actually agree with Ashley here, because Ashley is saying, what am I supposed to do? You tell me one thing, but you really mean another. Which, I mean, to be a single guy in the dating world, that sounds like par for the course. But that's a podcast for another day. But what do you make of this?
That's one of our many side podcasts, along with our sex tape review, our roofing show, etc. Go on.
Yes, exactly. But how this begins with the whole Cara Maria being upset that Ashley slept with Kyle. What do you make of just how this all started?
Well, I think there's a lot of issues at play. I think, once again, not unlike Kayleigh, Smashley knows that she fucked up, right? She knows that she fucked up with Hunter. She knows that she's embarrassed by the fact that she slept with Kyle. Another issue is that Kyle has done nothing to fix this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Kyle is in a position where he could put this fire out one way or the other, but he has chosen not to. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. Another issue is that Cara has also not handled her business. Like, there's all these little things at play. So because no one's handling their issues up front when they're sober, it's all going to explode. And that comes up, obviously, typically, when they get back to the house.
So the one thing here, though, right? The one thing here, though, before we actually get to, like, the house part of this, like, just sticking with the Cara and Ashley thing. First off, they're not really that tight, right? Like, they might be okay. They might be acquaintances in the house, but they're not really that cool in the house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Ashley comes in. Ashley's not really trying to have many people know her business, but at the end of the day, Kyle's single, Ashley's single.
Yeah.
Cara is single. So at the end of the day, like, there's no real issue here. Like, it's kind of weird, like, Cara's kind of trying to extend some olive branch as if Ashley's supposed to be like, hey, I did this, and like, like she's laying claim to Kyle, which is tough to do when, Ashley would be the third person in the house now, right? So it's just weird to begin with. And I really feel that as it got to the house and you add Amanda into this now, this is where things really come down, right? Because there's always this tension between Cara and the other females in the house, because Cara is an interesting character, but there's so many layers. And one being, she's a great competitor. So she always does a good job at the challenge, right? And they never want to really go against her, but they want to vote her out. So there's the mean girls aspect to it, right? The other side to it is just the way that the show is built around Cara in terms of, we say this all the time, the female Johnny Bananas, right? Like, there's a lot of storylines built around Cara and made up for Cara to frame it in a certain way to make her look as a hero, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of this starts. But
okay,
what ends up happening here, John, Amanda, as the way that it's edited, and I say this because there's a lot of contention about this online, but the way that it's edited, I'm glad
you mentioned that.
Amanda is going at Cara. She's talking to Zach in the room, and add that to her confessional, and Amanda's kind of going on a diatribe about how she doesn't really care about Cara. She doesn't want to be friends with her. She doesn't want to be friends with her outside of the house, so she definitely wouldn't want to be friends with her here either. And we see Cara outside the room listening or overhearing this conversation. And she decides to go right in there, and she confronts her. Okay, you guys are talking shit. And for the first time, I'm like, I don't think I'm on Amanda's side here. Because when Cara comes in the room, Amanda's kind of like, wait, from who? Like, who said what? What are you talking about? As if she doesn't know why Cara's mad. Like, she wasn't just talking shit. And again, this is how it was edited. But as it's presented to us as viewers, I was like, Amanda, I don't know about this one.
Well, I don't quite understand how Amanda gets inserted into this. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that's just the mom mentality, right? Like, that's her girl. Yeah. Ashley's her girl. She knows Cara's being a suck, and she's going to use this opportunity. Like, you're not actually mad about the issue. You're mad about how this issue relates to your preconceived thoughts on Cara.
Yeah.
Right? So you originally think that she's a whiner. You think that she's like everything's centered around her. And now she's being a suck once again, trying to play the victim to Ashley about, oh no, I can't believe you slept with Kyle and he didn't tell me. And she's not here for that storyline. So she's like, this bitch is fake, blah, blah, blah. And that's what ends up happening. That's why she's pissed off. So I kind of get how it starts. And she's mostly defending her friend, which, hey, I'll always rep that.
Yeah.
But then it goes overboard.
It goes way overboard. And I don't think, I'm going to speak for you for a second, I don't think either of us are big Cara Maria fans at this point. And, like, stop me if I'm wrong. But, like, I'm pretty sick of her. Like, someone posted on the Facebook challenge group earlier this week, like, would you watch the challenge if Cara Maria wasn't on it? And I commented, like, yes, I definitely would love a Cara Maria and Johnny Bananas break. And I pointed at the old pro wrestling adage, how can we miss you if you won't go away? Like, there's something to be said of the idea of, like, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Mm-hmm. I definitely could use a Cara Maria break. I also think, and I bring this up every couple of episodes, on one of our old interviews with Wes, he made the point that for people like Johnny and Cara, and even to a lesser extent Zach, that the schedule that they're now expected to keep is not sustainable and probably messing them up a little bit in terms of like their mental health and happiness. Like, they're away from home for basically half the year because this is their fourth challenge that they filmed in 2018, and like they don't get a break from it now when they come back because it's their second proper challenge, but they've done 2 champs versus stars. They don't get to like take a break from it in their home lives because their Twitter is always blowing up. Like, if you think of the challenge 10 years ago, you'd film the challenge, you'd go home, it would be edited, and then it would go out, and like it would only be like 8 weeks long or 10 weeks long or 12 weeks long that's on the air, and there was no Twitter. So like you just like went about your life, and sometimes people would stop you and be like, hey, are you so and so from the challenge? But now it's a 24/7 experience, and it's so hard for them to take a step away. And also, again, especially for Cara and Johnny, who like this is basically their full-time jobs, they're also doing the podcast circuit, and they're doing those like clubs in the US where you get to like meet members of the challenge if you go and you pay like a $20 cover or whatever. And so I think part of the issue is that Cara is just like worn the fuck out. And like I say that like I said, I'm not a big fan of hers, but I think it's not helping that she is mentally frayed. And on top of that, I do think that there is an element of jealousy from a lot of the other female competitors, because she does have one of the best track records in terms of winning. She does, I think, get preferential treatment from the producers and editors, just as Johnny does. And like they also have earned it. Like, there's 2 sides of it. They've earned the attention and the positive edits because they're good in confessionals, and they do bring like they are good TV, and they are good competitors. So like I understand why production makes the decisions that they do, but I also can imagine that it would be very easy to get into the attitude where you're a competitor on the challenge and you just saw Cara Maria win $1 million last season. You're like, this bitch is back. Like, was that million not good enough on top of your crazy good appearance fees, on top of showing up to those clubs and getting those appearance fees? And, you know, like I said, Cara is probably worn out. And you're like, and you're super hard to deal with inside the house. And just by Cara's nature, I gather, is kind of an aloof person, which, like Natalie, doesn't help her reputation. Like, I do see both sides of things, but also there's a lot of, in my mind, immaturity where people have to just, like, handle their business up front and then not get into these big blow-ups or, like, you know. And also, it is a show designed to piss everyone off. Like, they are teamed up with the people they like the least. Like, it's not, like, reason there's no surprise that there's so much house drama where, like, by definition, everyone's working with someone they dislike strongly. And, like, some of the... We talked about this in the very first episode of Final Reckoning. Some of these beefs could be squared away immediately, but some of them can't. Like, the Kayleigh and Natalie beef, Natalie has a very legitimate gripe. Kayleigh's doing nothing to fix it. That's not going to go away, right? Like, that's an issue that's not going to disappear. So, you know, I understand why it's such a combustible situation, but it's also, in my mind, preventable, or could be, like, mitigated, could be reined in.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was super funny in the sense that, you know, partway through, and I don't know how many times you watch it or if you know, rewind back certain scenes or whatever, but I did rewind this one back a couple times just to make sure I wasn't missing any, like, funny lines or anything like that. But the reality was I couldn't even really understand what they were saying most of the time because so much of it had to be bleeped out, right? And it was so funny that it's just, like, constant swearing and yelling and it's just bleeps, and I couldn't even make out sentences because so much of it was being bleeped, right? The other thing that I found super funny, though, was just watching. I love watching everyone else's reaction in the scene. So, you know, you're always going to get Johnny Bananas sitting in the background laughing. Normally he's partnered with, like, Tony or Zach also laughing. But, like, Nelson kind of half asleep in the bed beside Joss and Amanda. He's kind of just laughing. I thought that was funny. You know, that was hilarious. He's like in his hoodie. But then you see Ashley just come out of nowhere and she's just screaming. And I think most of the bleeps were coming directly from Ashley. And she's, like, standing on, I don't know, a chair or something, just screaming at the top of her lungs. I thought that was funny. The other part was security. Now, I feel like this let me know that I think a lot of things were edited in this episode because I didn't really see a need for security. Right? So that tells me that there was more that happened in this scene that we probably didn't see. Now, they were both yelling in each other's faces, you know, when it all started. But, like, Cara's not really going to fight anybody. Like, we know that. We've seen Cara on this show for how many years? She's not really going to fight anyone. Joss was holding Amanda back. Like, so she's not really going to... Like, no one was really going to fight. But the fact that security was there and just standing guard... I was kind of like, okay, did we miss something here? Like, did something else happen? That kind of just seemed like it was a bit much to me, no?
Well, apparently, and I got this from Twitter, apparently when Ashley jumped up on the, like, little ottoman so that she could, like, shout over security and stuff, apparently our girl Marie shoved her off of the ottoman. So, like, there was some physicality. Yeah. I have to ask you, because what I found the most interesting takeaway was that Marie stepped up and defended Cara. What did you think of Marie's role in all of this?
So there's a couple things here. First, Amanda says that, and I just lost it. I just had the tweet up and then I lost it. But Marie stepping up for her teammate, like that makes sense. But there's a few things here. So Amanda says that she was surprised that Marie defended her. Sorry, let me get my sarcastic Joe Budden reading tweets voice here. But Amanda on Twitter says, I'm surprised Marie defended her. I mean, I guess I would have too if I was laying in her crush's bed. Laughing emoji. Fucking Marie, ha 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 ha. To which Marie commented and just said, that's not it, Amanda. So clearly there's a lot of other things going on in this instance. And the other part to this whole thing that might flip it all around, right? It's that Amanda claims that what actually happened is that she says, quote, editing is great. So us talking shit about Cara happened after the huge fight, hence why we were so amped up. The real reason why it started is because the guys were yelling her name because Marie was in Kyle's bed snuggling. That's why she came into the room like a crazy bitch.
So I gather what they're saying is that what really happened is that Marie and Kyle were snuggling. To stir up shit. The guys called Kara's name repeatedly to like be like, yo, come check this shit out. Just like classic chirping, like trying to egg her on. Yeah. And then things escalated, like she was in the room, probably Amanda made some comment, and off to the races we go.
Yeah.
And like
definitely.
Sure, that's the editing, but I mean, the fight's not about Marie snuggling with Kyle. Like, that's not... We would have seen that in the edits, right? Like, I can't believe I'm going to take what I assume are the words out of your mouth, because you are the production guy. But if you're a producer, and you could have more about Marie and Cara Maria not getting along, wouldn't you make that a storyline? Like, if it's worth, if it's actually causing friction between the two of them, wouldn't you make that a storyline? But they didn't. Like,
exactly.
Which tells the fire was with the Amanda Ashley Cara fight.
Yeah, which tells me where this is going, right? And where this is going to, if you piece everything together, is that this alliance of the Lavender Ladies, or what is Johnny Bananas and Tony? What have they been calling them? The Lavender something else.
Losers.
Lavender Losers. Yeah, sorry, I totally forgot about that. But where, to me, this edit tells me things are going is that this group is about to break up, right? Like, tensions are coming to a head. We got a lot of Hunter and Ashley obviously beefing. Then you have this whole thing of, you're setting up a storyline of, oh, what is Marie going to do? Is she going to side with her girls, or is she going to side with her partner? And that's kind of the central theme. And I think that not only is Marie right to side with her partner in this instance because you're playing for $1 million, but also the way that it was edited and presented to us, the other girls just ganging up on Cara, and Amanda was going way too far. Even her own partner, Zach, agreed and said that, like, she just dissing Cara, and it was very high school, right? Like, this ugly bitch, like, she's just calling her ugly. She's saying, like, she has no friends. Nobody even likes you. Like, it was very, like, childish and immature, right? And so Marie was totally right, I thought, like, with her classic line that she kept saying over and over again. But it was true. She just kept saying, y'all are corny. And it was corny, right? Like, it was super corny. And this isn't a thing where, I know if you listen to this podcast, Marie comes on and talks to us a bunch, and, we have a good rapport with Marie. And this isn't even about that. But this is like, actually, I agree. Like, they're being super corny. Like, it's not like they're bringing up relevant points. And if they just kept it to, Cara being caught up in her feelings because Kyle played her on national TV, and then Ashley slept with Kyle, and if that's what it's centered around, okay, cool. But they took it to all this other stuff, and, like, you're talking about her, you hope her horse dies, and, like, you know what I mean? And just like, oh, you're ugly, nobody likes you. Like, it was just like very grade 8, right?
It was
super lame. It was and corny. Like, I agree.
Let's put it another way. In this, if you just take this particular situation, what did Cara do to hurt anyone?
Well, no, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? And again, in the end, I'm on like Cara and Marie's side in this entire thing. But the way that it started, I understand why Amanda was getting mad, because it was the same thing as, you know, I could understand why Kayleigh in part was mad at Natalie, because Natalie, much like Cara Maria, they're very quick to play the victim role, right?
Yeah.
And so you could see where that conversation with Cara and Ashley was going in the beginning. Cara was going to play the victim role of, oh, I feel so bad, you could have told me, or I pretended like I didn't care, but deep down inside, of course I cared, because I'm always going to care about Kyle, and I have feelings and blah, you know, like, we know where that was going because we've seen it season after season after season, right?
Yeah, of course.
The tears are probably going to come, and we're supposed to feel bad for Cara. So in the beginning, I understand where they were going, but much like Zach said to Amanda, then he just went overboard. At a certain point, you got to just shut up, right, and stop.
Yeah, it doesn't deserve that much anger, right? Like totally. It doesn't deserve, as you said, like talking about her horse and like insulting her. It should be just like, shut up, Cara. You know, like it just like move on. And also, I know that it's hard. It's annoying to see like Cara be like, go to Smashley and be like, oh, you know, like I do have feelings for Kyle, and like I feel disrespected. But at least Cara is approaching Ashley one-on-one to tell her how she was hurt by the situation. Yeah, and she even in that conversation at the Legion Hall, she even said up front, like, hey, it's on Kyle. Like, it's not on you, but, like, I want you to understand why I'm hurt. That's the sort of, like, assertive behavior that we were saying that Natalie should have done more of, and that, like, should nip this shit in the bud. Right? Like, that's the adult thing, and, like, not optimal situation to do it at the club when you've been drinking, when Ashley has put on her best yoga pants and bra. Like, but, you know, you should actually, at least she's saying what's on her mind to the one person that it's affected. You know what I mean? Like, at least she's being direct and upfront about her feelings finally, instead of being sulky about it.
Yeah, and I like the energy that she brought when she went to confront Amanda too, right? Like, she just went to her and been like, okay, I can hear you. Like, I hear what you're saying about me, right? And it wasn't on some, I'm playing the victim. It was, okay, now I'm here. Keep talking, right? And she came with that energy, and I found it kind of funny because, you know, it's a TV show, right? It's a TV show. It's a reality show where there's a lot of yelling, a lot of, like, fake tough guy stuff. But the reason why this scene was pretty funny to me was because it reminds me of, you know, the classic line of real bad boys and girls in this case move in silence, right? And it was funny because you see Amanda just like yelling and screaming, and Ashley's yelling and screaming, and Marie, you could tell, looks like she's drunk, but she's still calm and cool, just like, you guys need to shut up and chill, you know? And like Amanda's like all up in her face, like screaming in her face, and Marie is just like calmly looking at her and being like, okay, really? Like, that's what you're doing now? Like, really? You're up in my face? You know, and I just thought that was really funny, right? Because it kind of showed what was really going on here, right? And that Amanda didn't have, you know, rightly or wrongly, she said, she actually made a point on Twitter to say that if you haven't learned by now, her and Ashley just say whatever's on their mind whenever it's on their mind. They're just going to say it and don't care, which is cool. Yeah. I mean, I understand that. More power to you. But sometimes you look like an idiot. And that was one of those times where you look like an idiot. You know what I mean? And Marie looks like the more mature person, you know, and trying to be like, yo, you guys were just straight going at her and bullying her about being ugly, or like nobody likes you, and like, what does that gain? What purpose does that serve? Like that, like, you're just being a bitch for the sake of being a bitch, really. I
also liked what Marie said on Twitter, where she's like, we're all still friends. Friends fight. Friends have disagreements.
Yeah, definitely. 10,000%.
My point, the reason why I brought up Marie with you is, and I know that we may be biased, But I think Marie came out looking really good here. It sounds like she didn't lose the respect of her friends, and Cara Maria can at least be like, hey, Marie did right by me. Marie did not join in, and Marie defended me. And Davon said as much to her, too, being like, hey,
for sure,
your partner's out there sticking up for you. Don't forget that when you're sober. Anyway, on to the actual challenge, on to the actual competition. Right off the hop, and it looked like the next day. Like, I think they're still either in their feelings or hungover from the Legion Hall the night before. They're talking about how would you describe this competition? They have to mend bridges is the pun that they're going for. Mm-hmm. And they're suspended super high. Like, I know it's a classic height challenge, but it seemed like higher than usual, maybe. And they have to take ropes and sort of complete a rope bridge across this expanse by tying knots and passing the rope back and forth and tying them to sailing brackets. I do have to take umbrage with something. Off the top, Brad says that he and Kyle lost their winning streak, so they have to start winning again. And as a sports reporter, that offends me, because 2 wins is not a win streak, Brad. You need at least 3 wins. And that's pushing it. I mean, it's definitely not 2, though. That's back-to-back wins. Come on, Brad.
So, a couple of things here. I mean, Brad's been pretty low-key since the whole, what's his homegirl's name that's gone now? Brittany. Since the whole Brittany thing happened, Brad's been pretty low-key. So, shouts to Brad. But I will say this challenge looked so hard. First off, they're, what did they say, 100 feet in the air?
Yeah.
Like, it looked crazy. And then, so that's one factor, right? The other factor is you need to have teamwork, because you're on either side and you kind of keep having to pass the rope back and forth, so that as you're climbing across the ropes yourself, your partner passes you the rope so you can now extend it and continue the bridge, so to speak, so you can make it across. This looks super hard, right?
It is super hard, and height is a factor.
Of course, yeah. If you're afraid of heights, you're probably screwed at this, right?
Oh, I mean the height of people, because they have to. I think it was hard to reach and like move across the ropes if you're a shorter person.
For sure. Which TJ at the very end, though, did point out that when they had the testers were all pretty short, and they were still able to get across in under 10 minutes. Pretty easily, he said. Now, mind you, I'm going to guess the testers probably aren't just like random folk. They're probably, challenged or like have experience with heights and ropes and, tying knots. Because that's the other thing too, right? Like, I don't know about you, but Cub Scouts was a long time ago. Boy Scouts was a long time ago, and tying knots, right? Like, if you're afraid of heights, or if you have just even the slightest issue with heights, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that while you're basically dangling 100 feet in the air, it's going to be pretty tough for you to be tying a knot that tight that it'll hold up the body weight of a grown-ass person. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how my technique might be, how good my technique might be in my knot tying, right?
You're going to
like,
go out on a limb.
A lot harder.
You're going to go out on a limb if someone has issues with heights? That was a beautiful pun. That was some wonderful wordplay, Sheldon Alexander. I'm very impressed with you right now.
Pun not intended.
Well, you nailed it. Take credit. I agree. Like, I'm pretty good with heights, but they had to be up there for 15 minutes at a time, and it's not a standard height challenge where you can just, like, the standard advice is don't look down. Mm-hmm. Like, just focus on, like, walking across the balance beam or whatever you're supposed to do. But for this challenge, they have to look down. Like, it's not possible to do what they're doing without looking down.
Also,
And
too, though, if you're just looking out, like if you're just looking forward, like all you're seeing is mountains. Like you're just dangling in the middle of nothing. So
yeah,
even if you just looked around and you didn't look down, you still know that you're high as fuck and you're in the middle of the air, right? You're in the middle of the sky. Like this was a crazy, crazy, crazy challenge. You know, the other part I was thinking too?
what's
The
that?
camera people. There's like a camera guy and a sound guy also like on this contraption, right?
Yep.
Like filming it and getting audio. Like, do you have to have like some special certification to do that? Or is there just like, oh no, these are the guys that shoot heights and shit and they're cool. We got like a crew of like 10 dudes. Because that just can't be a normal camera guy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a crazy ass thing because you're obviously standing up there for hours upon hours, no?
You are, and also, I mean, they're probably more strapped in and stuff, but you're totally right that it's going to be, like, you're not just drawing straws amongst the camera people. Like, they definitely have specialized people, and I'm sure that they use, like, a drone for some of the shots, but you're right, that doesn't help with the sound guy.
Yeah.
Right? And,
No,
like, the
definitely.
sound up there would be tough because it's so windy.
Mhm.
And, like, credit to the sound guy. We could hear what they were saying. Like, we heard Kyle shout back to TJ, like, screw you, TJ. And, like,
Oh, yeah.
I have to point out, I think Brad actually tweeted this, or someone tweeted at Brad. But back in the real world, like, on the show, not real life, but when he was on the real world, back on those seasons, they had things that they had to do, like a group activity or like a job that they all shared. And his season was that they worked on sailboats. So Brad's super good at tying knots on sailing brackets. But that doesn't help Kyle, who's really bad with heights.
Yeah. And I mean, they did the second best, right? Like they got 3 ropes, I think.
Yeah, they were
So-
close. They were close.
To me, though, the dynamic of this whole challenge was pretty funny just seeing the people on the ground watching and watching with TJ, but also like commenting as if, you know, you're judging the people that are up there. But then as soon as they got up there themselves, it was still kind of like, oh shit, this is really hard. Or this is a lot more crazy than I thought it was initially, right? So Marie and Cara they both struggled, right? And that was a thing. That was a thing that, you know, didn't really surprise me. I guess the surprising part, if there was one, was I thought Cara wouldn't be as scared because I would feel that after this many challenges, you'd be used to the heights. But I guess that just showed how much more fucked up this challenge was.
Yeah. I loved
Like
what TJ said. You're not killing it at all.
Yes, I thought that was super funny. I definitely thought that was amazing. That was just funny to see, but also just watching the dynamic between everybody, right? Because, you know, even Amanda and Zach, it was funny, like the little banter that they had going back and forth, and they're bantering back and forth. Meanwhile, Joss and Sylvia weren't really talking to each other, but they kind of did the exact same as Amanda and Zach, right? Like there's so many different layers to this. And the amazing part to me was, well, a couple of things. Shane and Nelson seem to be getting along a bit better, right? Like their partnership seems to be gaining traction, gaining steam. The main thing though, Tony and Bananas.
Yeah.
Not only did they make it all the way across, but the way that they were doing it was way different than everyone else. They were kind of walking across the ropes.
Yeah,
and
they were much
standing
smarter
more
about
upright.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and standing more upright as opposed to people trying to crawl across the ropes, right? And it was just interesting to watch the different strategies, but also it tells you how scary it was because you didn't really see anyone else use that strategy that Tony and Bananas were using, right? Everyone else seemed more like either they didn't move or they were just crawling across and didn't make it that far at all.
Yeah, it was clear to me that Tony and Johnny had learned from watching other people, which is classic Johnny Bananas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like learn from other people's mistakes.
Definitely.
But it was very obvious that they had watched what had happened and learned from it. I think one of the reasons why Shane and Nelson were getting along better was that there was all the drama in the house the night before, and a lot of the issues was lingering anger from the night before. Like Zach, you could tell as soon as Zach and Amanda got out on the apparatus that he was already annoyed with Amanda. Like she was like sitting trying to discuss it with him as it was raised into the air. And he, like, you could just tell from his tone, from his body language, that he was still angry with her from the previous night. But Shane somehow did not get into the drama that night.
No.
Like, which is unlike him. Honestly, and I have nothing to back this up, I assume that he was passed out drunk. Like, what else would keep Shane out of drama like that?
That's
I also
funny.
think what helps Nelson and Shane is that, as surprising as it is that Cara Maria struggled in this challenge, because she normally does pretty well at height challenges, Shane has never done well at height challenges. Like,
yeah, I mean, him throwing up before he even went up there, that was like, oh yeah, he doesn't like heights. Like, he's kind of nervous about this whole thing.
And he always is. Like, every time there's a height challenge, Shane really has a hard time with it. But to his credit, he went out there and put in the work. Like, Shane and Nelson were close to finishing. They got further than most people. But, like, in other words, if you're Nelson, it's hard to be mad at Shane on this particular day. Like, he wasn't involved in the drama. He didn't feed into the drama. And he's, like, you know that one of Shane's drawbacks is that he does not do well with heights. But he sucked it up, and he got out there.
Yeah,
Similarly,
someone else that also got out there, though, was Davon. I thought that was kind of cool because she was so scared, but she actually said, I'm so scared, but my pride isn't going to let me look like a punk ass bitch in front of all these people. I thought that was kind of funny, right? And you know, you want to think that you would have that same mentality, that you'd be able to talk yourself up enough to be like, no, I can do this, mind over matter, right? And It was cool to just watch her at least try, and they were just so happy that they at least got one rope. I thought that was cool. But the other main point of this challenge, or the main talking point coming out of it, is the Ashley and Hunter relationship already disintegrating, right? Yep. And they're up there and they're arguing. Ashley is melting down, and, you know, hey, I'm not going to rip anyone for melting down up there because I don't think that I would react well up there. But Hunter plays a huge role in this too, in the demise of their relationship, right? And I mean their partnership. Because he now is so mad that she lied to him about sleeping with Kyle, and he keeps saying he doesn't trust her, but he doesn't even talk to her anymore, right? And your partnership has no chance in surviving if you don't even talk to your partner. And I think he's playing a huge role in this. Yes, Ashley is causing a whole lot of drama. Yes, Hunter said, you know, what did he put the odds at? I think he said like 75% chance that Ashley blowing up is going to cost them the money. He could be right in all of that, but he's not helping the situation either. Do you agree?
I agree with you. First of all, Hunter fucking could barely speak English today. He was trying to say, he said, let me see if I can find how he phrased it, but he had this way, Ashley's going to be our biggest demise. That's not proper grammar. Like, that's not how you speak properly, Hunter. I do take his meaning, and I agree with you that he's absolutely right to be angry with Ashley. If I were him, I'd be angry that A, she put them in the crosshairs by sleeping with Kyle, and B, lied about it to him. Like, those are both reasons to be pissed. And I take his point that he's the sort that if you lie to him once, he never trusts you again. However, when it comes to trying to cross a bridge that you are like stringing together as you go along, you don't really have to trust that someone is going to not sleep with someone and tell you about it if they do. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain point where he should have gotten over this.
Yeah, he should have gotten over this at some point. No. Well, like, I get it, and I understand it at its core, but he's like, I'll never trust you, and once I lose trust, like, that's it. I can't even talk to you. It's like, okay, dude, there's $1 million at stake here. Yeah. Did she sleep with the dude and lie to you about it? Yeah. Now, does that mean that you can't trust her in terms of, like, you still have to vote together, you still have to talk and communicate while you're 100 feet in the air trying to build a rope bridge, right? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it just made no sense. And at a certain point, again, much like with the Amanda thing, there's a line. I get your point. I even might be with you with your point, like I might even agree with you with your point. But there's a certain point where it's like, fall back. And I don't think neither he or Amanda know where that line is.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly the issue. Like, I think Hunter should be angry with Ashley. And I think that after they're done this competition, like after they're done the bridge mending competition, he should be angry with her afterwards. But set it aside for like half an hour and just be like supportive.
Yeah.
And cool. And like, I think of the partners, like, you could see their success. Tony and Johnny were very like encouraging. Shane and Nelson were pretty encouraging of each other, and their bickering couple in their Bert and Ernie kind of way. Joss was pretty supportive of Sylvia, and I think he legitimately fell, unlike Amanda, who just gave up, or Ashley, who gave up. It's also a bad look on Ashley that she said that Cara Maria was just sitting there like an idiot, and then she just sat there like an idiot. Like, it's one thing to struggle with this challenge, it's another thing to chirp someone about this challenge, and then you yourself not being able to do it. Like, at least if you're Ashley, if you were just talking shit about Cara, just like clamp your mouth shut and don't say anything when you freak out. You know what I mean? Like, you've lost the high ground.
Yeah. No, for sure. You're talking about how the partners have been working with each other, and it was interesting to see that Ashley, I'm with Ashley in this instance. Like, she was mad because Hunter wasn't even helping her, right? Or forget trying to encourage her. He wasn't even really helping her, and that's terrible. Whereas you look at Zach, who, again, we've been talking about it, how Zach is one of the better characters this season, but he stated before him and Amanda went in his confessional, he said, my biggest challenge is to stop Amanda from feeling as if she's worthless, right? My biggest challenge is convincing Amanda she's not worthless. And yeah, that is a huge part of what's going on. Now, did it work? No, because she just gave up anyways. But I'm pretty sure that she was in her mind, she'd already decided that she was going to give up. And there was nothing he could have done. Like, he tried, right? And he was trying to be encouraging and tried to help her. But in her mind, I think she was just like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be able to do it. And she gave up. So, I mean, it was interesting to see the dynamics of it. But again, going back to our earlier convo in this pod about how the editing all played out, look at what we're talking about here when the challenge comes up, right? We're talking about how all of the Lavender teams struggled, and there was, issues with trust, issues with communication. They did the worst, and now Johnny Bananas and Tony win. Who's going to be on their radar in terms of what they should do next?
Well, right? I was going to ask you, who do you think Johnny and Tony should put in, and who do you think they will put in? Because there's a difference.
So I think they're going to go for Joss and Sylvia and Ashley and Hunter. That's what I would do if I was them.
I think that they're going to go for Shane and Nelson. And I think that's probably who they should go for. Because Shane has made it abundantly clear that he's going for Johnny Bananas.
True.
I think that you can kind of... because you got to assume that Cara Maria and Marie are going to vote for Zach and Amanda.
Yeah, but hold on though. Before we get too deep into this part of the convo though, right? We got to acknowledge the fact that the whole game's changed, in the sense that the real thing to figure out is how are they going to go about getting whoever it is that they want to be in the elimination into the elimination. right?
yeah.
Like that's really the biggest part here, because it's not just as simple as saying, hey, we have 2 votes, we're going to put our 2 votes against blank, because remember what can happen here, right, is if everyone else cancels their vote, what happened last time? The team that they decide to put in gets to pick who they go against. So you probably want to safeguard against that, especially if you're Johnny Bananas, because you're already low on allies. So do you even want to leave it to chance that, hey, I put in, you know, Shane and Nelson, and they end up taking out or wanting to go against the only possible alliance that they could possibly, like, I don't know who that alliance is that Johnny Bananas and them have, you know, but if it's Kyle and Brad, you know what I mean? Like, they want to go against them maybe, and now you're losing the only possible duo that you have. Or maybe it's Marie and Cara, who, again, might be the only, you know, like, at least half the team that you have. So there's a lot of that. To me, is going to be the biggest thing, is not only who are they going to put in, but how are they going to put in this team and make sure that it doesn't affect the, like, slim alliance numbers that they already got.
That's a very good point. And I think something to consider. I'm curious, for you, what was your line of the day?
My line of the day goes back to Zach and Amanda. Well, first off, no. Let me rephrase that. My real line of the day is Marie, who continued the chirps of, she keeps saying, you guys need to chill the fuck out. You're all fucking corny. Repeatedly, over and over again. That's my real
classic, like, Marie
line of the episode. Yeah, it might be the name of the podcast too. Y'all are fucking corny. I don't think we can swear in the title, but I don't know.
iTunes censors us when we do, but
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, they
Good
bleep
to know
it
going
out.
Forward.
Yeah, but we can put it. Y'all are corny.
Yep. But my real line of the episode is Zach and Amanda, and Zach, while he's trying to motivate and I guess lighten the mood, while he and Amanda are dangling 100 yards up in the air, or 100 feet up in the air, sorry. He says, stop flopping it around like it's Josh's limp dick. And Amanda says, Josh's dick is never that limp. So I thought that was a funny back and forth, because obviously there's tension between the two of them. He's trying to motivate her, but also lighten the mood and get her to, like, you know, loosen up. And I think he did a good job in that, right? And Amanda just shows that she's her normal self, quick-witted no matter what the situation is, bouncing right back, and shouting out her boo. I thought that was funny. And she says she'd rather jump off a cliff than be Zach's partner in this challenge, which I thought was funny. So that's where I'm giving my line of the episode.
My line of the episode was also Zach and Amanda, but this is when they're back on solid ground and they're sort of bickering in front of the camera. And he goes 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. And she goes, at least we're moving forward. And he says, no, we're not. Like, she hadn't done the math. That made me laugh.
It was pretty good.
So, Sheldon, who killed it for you this week?
So, who killed it for me this episode is...
It's a tough one.
No. It wasn't for me. It was TJ Lavin.
Oh!
TJ had a great episode. And it was funny because he was so into the episode, even if you go back to the eating challenge. Like, I love that he was like, he hates the eating challenge, even though he never has to eat anything, but he just hates watching it because it's so gross. Like, it was something I didn't even think of, right? Because at first when he started talking and saying that he didn't like that challenge, I was like, yeah, but you don't even have to eat it. But then I thought about it. He has to stand there and watch them, like, just puke for like an hour straight, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would also hate that challenge. So it started there, but then just when you go into the challenge at the very end of the episode, where he's basically trying to encourage people to at least move, and it was a constant thing, like, come on, at least try, right? Then called them all out at the end, saying he's never seen a worse performance in the challenge ever.
Did you catch
that? Might be going a little far.
Did you catch that Marie said on Twitter that she feels like her performance in the wicker basket last season was worse?
Yes. I did say that. I did see that, sorry. Yeah, that was super funny. But yeah, all in all, solid episode by TJ Lavin. We talk about it all the time. You know, people always, question the host of the show and if they like TJ as a host. This is why TJ is a good host. No, in comparison to just other shows, right? Like, you have people that might love Julie Chen. You have people that love Probst. Is that his name? Jeff Probst? Is that his name? Or what's the Bachelor dude's name?
Chris Harrison.
Chris Harrison, you have a lot of different hosts and they all have different styles. But the reason why we love TJ is because of this and the way that he goes back at them and he'll call them out and he's just real about the situation, right? And I think that he is an actual character that if you replaced him with someone else, it's definitely not the same vibe, right? Like they're literally dangling in the air 100 why do I keep saying meters? 100 feet up in the air.
You keep saying meters because you're Canadian, because we're on the metric system.
Also true. Right? But he's up there and he's just clowning them like, at least try. Like, what do you mean you're not even going to try? Like, that's pathetic. And I just thought that was hilarious. So yeah, TJ, you killed it. Which sounds kind of weird that we're applying his own line back to him, but full circle.
Well, he kills it on the reg. He kills it every day.
Fair enough.
I'm a little mad that I didn't think of TJ as a choice, because you're right, he was awesome this episode. We haven't seen him get that mad since Theo refused to jump off that cliff, off that cave. Oh, I love it when TJ gets mad. It's the best. I think for me, the people who killed it are Johnny and Tony, who I will now refer to as Joni. Just because they performed, they got it done. I think they said even before the competition began, like there's a scene that we kind of skipped over where they're sort of appraising the situation. And they said, like, this is a big week. Like, if we win this week, we can push the Lavender Ladies over the edge. Mm-hmm. And they said that way before the competition, like, it wasn't even competition day. And I think that there's really something to be said, not just for winning, but for having the right timing for winning, Like,
yeah.
I already criticized Brad for his alleged win streak. Mm-hmm. But it's not so much like if you win, but when you win. Like, it's way more important to win at like this critical juncture where you can like maybe blow up an alliance and set them in on themselves and just like let them handle things the rest of the way. Like, if Johnny and Tony play their cards right, they'll be able to avoid getting put in for another few weeks, and maybe some of the Lavender Ladies and Shane will take themselves out. You know what I mean? Yep. So I think they really deserve credit for the timing of this win, and I mean, we'll see how it all pans out, obviously, but I think they killed it, and also they generally stayed out of the house drama. Generally,
yeah, no, totally true.
There are, before we sign off on this episode, there were a lot of listener comments from last week that were kind of hard to like shoehorn into what like we had to discuss this week. So I just wanted to review some of them because like we love it when people reach out to us and message us. I guess the first one I'll start with is a question for us, and I don't really know the answer. So I'm just going to put it to you because I didn't see you answer on Twitter. And, we'll talk about it now. Elisa Greenberg, and she's commented before, and I feel like we mispronounced her name, and I probably just did again. We're just going to call her Greenberg because I know how to say that. Said, since you guys brought up their potential partnership in the game in the last episode, I've been wondering, when did Devin and Corey not like each other? Aren't they both part of the Anti-Bananas crew? Any leads on why they're rivals partners? Why are they rivals partners? I couldn't actually think of a reason why. Do you got anything?
But I just assume that it wasn't like when you're coming back in as a mercenaries, you're just coming back in, and if you do have a vendetta, cool. But if you don't, you don't. Like I wasn't anticipating that just because they came back onto the show that they had to have a vendetta. I wasn't under that impression.
No.
But I also don't know.
Maybe that's it. Our guy, Lawrence Thomas, commented that the only time it's acceptable to say cockroach is, and then he had a photo of cockroach from The Cosby Show.
Solid reference, yeah.
Solid reference. Tough to reference The Cosby Show in this day and age, but I think Lawrence did it fairly and well. Mm-hmm. So shout out as always to LT. We have my girl JoJo, who said I gotta back things up. A few weeks ago, Jasmine, who now has 2 kids, or one kid? She has children. Jasmine, who had been on The Real World and then a few seasons of The Challenge, was talking about how she so badly wants to put out her opinion on The Challenge and how things are going now, and she's looking for a podcast to come on. She had already started following me on Twitter, so I said, hey, you're always welcome to come on, you killed it. And JoJo said, love them. And I said, thanks, JoJo. And then she said, Sheldon's great, but low-key, John's my guy. And it's not just because he's nice to Kara. But yeah, Jasmine, they seem like them guys who you could hang with at the cookout, if you know what I mean. And I just had to bring that up to rub it into you, Sheldon.
It's allowed. I mean, I'm still recovering from the scars, the emotional scars. It's been a tough week. I've cut out the comment, and it's in my mirror every morning, and I turn to it for motivation each day.
Is it on your dream board?
I don't know if I can talk about it anymore.
Fair enough. Another thing that was brought up, and I want to throw it out to our listeners, is there is talk of in 2019 having a challenge convention of all the podcasts. So we got tagged in it, and the Brain Candy podcast, so that's Sarah and Susie, like former challenge competitors, and the Scott Yeager and Derek Kaczynski from Challenge Mania got tagged, and a bunch of other podcasts, challenge podcasts, too many to list, got tagged and suggested that we should all get together and do Challenge Con, which you and I talked about this in text. I was very confused at first. I'm like, is this like a new hashtag that people want us to use? But what they mean is like a convention where like fans of the challenge can get together, and maybe we could do live tapings of our various podcasts. I think it'd be cool to meet a lot of these people. I think it'd be cool to meet our fans. I think it's weird that we have fans. As flattered as I am by JoJo's comments, by her compliments, it's also strange that people enjoy listening to us talk about the challenge this much. So I wanted to put it to our listeners. Do you guys think that we should participate, maybe help organize something? It was thrown out there that it should be in Washington, D.C. I don't know why D.C. specifically, but like I'm not mad at that. I've never been there. Like I'd be willing to go. So yeah, listeners, let us know. Would you want to attend a live version of You Killed It, or a live challenge convention where you get to meet a bunch of your podcast heroes? Heroes is too strong. Your favorite podcast hosts? That's better. That's up more on the level that we are. We're no one's heroes.
No, definitely not.
So yeah, hit us up. Let us know. Let us know what you think. You and I already talked about it, Sheldon. I'm speaking for you a lot today.
That's allowed. That's okay. That's all right.
I think you and I would both relish the chance of getting to do that.
That'd be fun for sure. That'd definitely be fun.
And I can also say, as Torontonians, DC would work well for us because I'm pretty sure that you can fly out of Billy Bishop Airport to get to Washington. Like, I think it's within Billy Bishop's range, which is a better airport than Pearson. So,
probably.
In any event, is that all we have, Sheldon, for You Killed It this week?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty tapped out. That's pretty good. This is a solid episode.
Satisfying.
A spicy episode.
It's spicy. Where can the people find you on the Soch?
As always, you can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander, and on YouTube. Shout out to the YouTube listeners at Sheldon Alexander, or of course, just search You Killed It, the Challenge Podcast.
There you go. It's that easy. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at jchidleyhill. Maybe if you're lucky, you will see an internationally ranked tennis player tell me off on Twitter, as happened this past weekend. Just a little treat for all of y'all. Until next week, this was You Killed It.
You Killed It.